Hey everyone, welcome back to BrowncoatNerd. Today we're going to be looking at the Smith & Wesson M&P 45, specifically a former Massachusetts State Police, sold out of Ames Surplus. This was in early June of 2025. They had the regular listed price as $350, but the sale price was $280. Ames Surplus does this a lot. I think a lot of times they're never even listed for that full price. They're just kind of always on sale. So I got it for $280. Unfortunately, Ames Surplus is sold out. Now this time it's not because I dragged my feet in making the video. 3 hours after I placed my order, I went back to do a screenshot of the exact description. And they were sold out. So I either got the last one or one of the last ones. So don't get mad at me for that. Now then, back on my, I believe it was the M&P 9 LE trade-in video I did, Pointy Not Sharp commented that if he lived in the States, he is from Australia, he'd be buying every police-marked LE trade-in handgun he could find. And I started thinking about that, and I've got some like Italian-marked police handguns, but I don't actually have any U.S.-marked police guns. And that made me realize I'm a horrible American. Got this guy in Australia that doesn't have any options to get anything like that, and I'm just passing up these opportunities. So, because of Pointy Not Sharp's comment, I said I had to get one. So, ended up getting this guy here. As you can see here, it is marked Mass State Police. And then we also have a police crest, and before people flip out, we are working with an unloaded firearm. Smith & Wesson has been making the M&P since around 2005 for police and law enforcement. It is a very popular gun amongst law enforcement. It's gone through a couple of evolutions. And then they have a very wide variety of M&P handguns to choose from. This one's kind of interesting, being a Gen 1 handgun. You'll notice it has these front slide serrations, which typically your Gen 1 M&P does not have. So I kind of thought that was interesting. Overall condition of this one is pretty good. I got a little streak over here I have not been able to clean up, so I'm going to guess that's just a wear mark from a holster. Then back here, if we tilt it just right, we can see some wear on that. But overall, not very bad at all. I do not know, kind of horrible like dark spot here. Hold on, let me just try to bring up the light a little more. But yeah, pretty good shape. It did come with the medium-sized back strap on here, which initially I was happy with, because once again, my 9mm, this one came with a large back strap. It was too big. Went with the medium one. Perfect fit. Now, when I first got the 45 and handled it, I was like, oh yeah, that's good. But then I handled the 9 immediately afterwards, and I was like, whoa, hold up, this is much better. So the grip is just a little bit fatter on the 45. Obviously, it's a larger round. So on this one, I think I'm actually going to go look for a used small back strap. I got kind of small hands, and with this being a slightly larger grip, I have a feeling the small back strap in this case is actually going to be better off for me than the medium. Now, I have not fired this gun yet, so this is going to be kind of just a first initial look. I am, however, pretty excited about this. Because it is sad to admit this is my first police, U.S. marked police handgun. So many times throughout the years of me collecting, I've come extremely close to getting one, and I never did. And it's kind of crazy that I'm just now getting one, because I definitely don't have one chambered in 40 that's also police marked on the way to me. If my wife comes after me, Pointy Not Sharp, I'm throwing you under the bus. I'm gonna blame it all on you. But yeah, pretty good condition. So far from what I've seen, I've got my little 9C here that was Israeli police surplus, and then the 9 here. Wear and tear on these is pretty good. The finish they put on these apparently is pretty tough. The listing just said 1 gun, 1 magazine, random back strap. They did mention some of the marks may vary. So I was a little bit nervous about that. I'm like, if I get one that's not marked, I'm going to be pissed. And originally, too, I think in the images, they just showed this marking. But I was happy to see that when it showed up, it did actually have the police crest on there, too. Now, I did get a little bit curious, so I got on YouTube and I Googled Massachusetts State Police. I don't know what I was looking for. I guess maybe some footage of one of them using one of these. After I got through all of the news stories of controversy surrounding that police department, I did come across I wrote it down here. It was a documentary narrated by Tom Brady on the Mass State Police, and that was on a YouTube channel called Mass Live. In there at one point, they do show them training. They're like on a shooting range, and you can very distinctly see that they are firing a M&P. Whether it's a 45, I don't know. I couldn't really see the front of the slide. But yeah, that's pretty much all I dug up on that. Like I said, I haven't shot this one yet, so I can't really report back on how it shoots. However, this recoil spring, like I am just, it feels super light to me. So I'm thinking before I do shoot this, I'm going to go ahead and get a replacement recoil spring. This one seems pretty light. I mean, the only other 45s I have are my SIG P220 with stamp slide and my RA 1911, and obviously those slides are going to be different weights. But they're both quite a bit stiffer springs than this guy. So maybe that's just how they are, but I have a feeling this one might be kind of pretty well worn in. And we can see here our mag is not done in the black melanite finish like you would typically see on these, so I kind of found that interesting. And from what I've seen, that's just, they didn't do that to the 45 magazines. Now, it is only a 10 round mag, which is kind of a bummer. You know, you're thinking double stack 45, this will be fun. However, it's only 2 more rounds than my SIG P220, that's a single stack, you know. 3 more rounds than the 1911, that's a single stack, you know, with flush fit mags. So that's, you know, kind of a bummer. But the main reason I was wanting to get this, like I said, is just to add an actual police marked, or at least a U.S. police marked one into my collection. And after getting the 9 and the 9C, it's like, okay, screw it, I guess I collect M&Ps now. So, figured that was a good candidate. Plus, kind of a more modern polymer striker-fired 45. Kind of felt like that might be fun, so we will find out. One interesting thing I did come across when I was cleaning this up is this takedown lever does not like to stay down. It just pops right back up. Now I can disassemble the gun still. I just kind of got to get all wonky with my hands. So I went poking around online to see, you know, I figured some spring or something simple, a detent or something, had failed. So I went asking around online, and pretty much all the feedback I got was a lot of the earlier M&Ps, I believe in general, not just the 45, the takedown levers would do that. They did not stay down. That was something that they kind of tweaked and changed later on. And so that is actually kind of how this gun is designed, from my understanding. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But like I said, the gun is still able to be disassembled, just not as easily as my 9. So kind of a bummer, but not really a huge deal. Definitely not a deal breaker in any way. The other thing that kind of sucks about this is I was going through trying to find some good reviews. I didn't find any specifically on these Mass State Police ones, but trying to find reviews on the older 45 M&Ps. One thing I kept seeing come up really on any of the first gen M&Ps is how crappy the trigger is. Now, I've kind of ignored that because my 9C and my 9 MMPs have nice triggers. They're fairly decent. Not sure what the trigger pull is on the 9C. On the full-size 9, though, the trigger pull is about 5 pounds, 6.4 ounces. And it feels nice. It's got a nice solid reset on both of them. So I've been pretty happy with the triggers. I thought maybe people were just being a little picky about it. And one thing I saw constantly brought up on the reviews for specifically the 45 MMP is not only how crappy the trigger is, but how bad the reset of the trigger is. So I was really curious when I got this. So once it showed up my FFL, that's one of the first things I did. And let me tell you, the reset on this is like a honest politician. It does not fracking exist. I mean, it sucks. The trigger pull itself is nice. Doesn't feel too grimy. There's not very much take up once you get to the wall. However, was that the reset? Nope. Was that the reset? Okay, it was. I felt absolutely nothing in my finger, and there's no audible click or anything. So there we kind of add a little bit of a sound. But yeah, this... Nope, that wasn't it. Nope, that's not it. Nope. There it is. Yeah, it is a god-awful, horrible reset on this. Now, once again, this isn't going to be a carry gun. It's not going to be a nightstand gun. This is just something for the collection. So this kind of falls into the realm of some of my like Zastava handguns that have the magazine disconnect safety, which it's worth pointing out. This gun can be fired with the magazine removed. You can have it either way on these. Most police forces get it without. Very happy this one doesn't have it either. But I'll kind of keep the triggers crappy. Also keeping it historically correct. So this crappy no reset trigger is what the Massachusetts State Police used on their guns. So keeping it historically accurate. Plus, I don't feel like throwing any more money at this. Like I said, it's just something for the collection. Take to the range every now and then. And it's not a huge deal. I definitely would prefer feeling the reset, but I can definitely live with that. So overall, so far, I am very happy with this purchase. Like I said, unfortunately, I was really lucky when I ordered it. Actually, like when I placed the order, I was like, did I really want to do that? Because I'm not the biggest fan of polymer or striker fire. I think they're good. They're great for carry guns or self-defense guns. But just to be adding another one to the collection, just to be in the collection, I was just kind of like, do I need to do this? I've already got the other two. And literally was like thinking about possibly canceling the order. And that's when I got back on the AIM Surplus website and saw that they were sold out. I was like, okay, we'll go ahead and leave that order in. So that's how I ended up with it. Another nice little surprise, like I said, the listing just said one mag, no box, various back straps. However, I got lucky with my full-size 9. They did not list it as having night sights, and actually I think it's just the front sight or just the rear sight. But this guy, it's a little too bright in here, does have night sights. They're not the brightest. They're not completely dead. There is definitely life in them. I'm not going to worry about changing them out. Once again, let me rephrase that. If I were to use this as a nightstand gun, I would go ahead and leave those night sights in there. At least for another couple years. Maybe they'll die in 2 or 3 years. And in that case, if it was a nightstand gun, yes, I would go ahead and change it out. But once again, just kind of nice little added bonus, especially just kind of being an extra little piece for the collection. Trigger pull. I have not measured that on this yet. Like I said, on the full-size 9mm, it was 5 pounds, 6.4 ounces. So we'll use our lineman trigger pull gauge here. We'll do an average of 5. First one was 5 pounds, 11.5 ounces. What is this, number 4? We'll say this is 5. So that gives us an average of 6 pounds, 4.6 ounces. So about a pound heavier than the 9mm. Once again, you know, I'm perfectly fine with that. The trigger itself feels clean. It's not gritty or grimy or anything like that. It just sucks not having that reset, which is completely non-existent on this guy. But like I said, just being a little range toy, I can 100% live with that. So real quick before we go, if you guys have been watching my new videos, you'll see I've kind of jumped down the Casio watch rabbit hole. Don't know if it showed up in this review, but this is what I'm wearing. This is the all-new Casio AQ S82-0W. It's an analog digital solar-powered watch. They just came out with this. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I think the price is going to drop on these, I bet, in the near future. And this will be my next watch review video. So if you're curious about that, that's what you got to look forward to. Alright guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Go check out Pointy Not Sharp on YouTube and Instagram. If you're into bayonets, he has got a wealth of information on bayonets. Also, don't forget to check me out on Rumble as well as Instagram. That is it, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay shiny.